Hi, it's John Terry with Vision Advisors, and I want to welcome you to a special Insight with Vision. In this particular episode, we're going international today, and I've got an opportunity to bring in a friend of mine I recently met at a summit, and his name is Csaba. And he has a skill set that you are going to want to learn about because it's going to be invaluable in your practice as we're getting ready to go into a new year and we're looking at how we give you an opportunity to scale your business. Now, every day you have an opportunity to get in front of individuals that may or may not be the type of person you want to work with. So how do you attract the right person? How do you get them to say yes to your offer? How do you ultimately drive them to want to meet with you and turn them into a paying customer? Those are some of the things we're going to talk about today as we discuss a term you may not be familiar with, and that's copywriting. So Csaba, I want to first of all say thank you for taking some time to be with our audience today. Can you give our audience a little bit of a background and let them know who you are, what you do, and maybe some things about you that might be interesting to folks here in America that don't understand the world of Hungary and that part of the Eastern world that you live in there in Eastern Europe? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John, for inviting me to this podcast. I'm really flattered and really great intro. So to answer your question briefly, my name is Csaba Borzási, and I'm a Hungarian who actually was born in Transylvania, Romania. And now I live in Budapest, Hungary, but I almost exclusively work with people from the US. All of my clients are mostly from people in the US, and I've been educated into this weird world of copywriting from teachers and mentors from the US. And the cool thing that I like about this is that if I would have to define copywriting, it would be basically salesmanship in print. And I really don't like the word, to be honest, copywriting. First of all, a lot of people confuse it with copywriting, which is a legal term when you want to copyright something. And the word copywriting assumes that you have to write something and that you kind of copy something from somewhere, which is, let's say, partially true because you write something, but it's all about persuasive communication. It's all about getting people to do something, to act. And that's super hard. But that's where the art and science of copywriting comes in.
You know, I love what you just said about persuasive communication, because as sales professionals, every sales professional makes money with their words. And if they use their words well, they make money. And if they don't use their words well, they don't. And there's huge value in every word we say. Now, one of the things that you and I were talking about before we came on, Csaba, is the fact that this COVID-19 pandemic that hit the world by surprise changed the world of financial services. Many of the financial professionals that are going to be watching this podcast, they made their living prior to COVID hitting America and other parts of the world doing dinner seminars where they would invite people to a high-end restaurant. They would buy them a steak dinner, or they would have, some nice meal. And then they'd have an opportunity to tell their story of why they do what they do, deal with issues of concern to the audience, and then invite them to a next step meeting to see if there's an opportunity to help them solve a money problem. Or many of them may be meeting in a university. They may be meeting in a college setting or a library doing adult education. But both of those shut down during COVID. And then those financial professionals had to transition into the world that you and I are in right now, and that's digital. For many of them, it was a challenge. And many of them didn't succeed as well as they could because they didn't understand the power of persuasive language in print.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. So can you take just a minute and talk to our audience about the importance of using persuasive communication in words, and maybe share some examples of the good, the bad, and the ugly of where that works and where it doesn't?
Absolutely. So it's actually funny because I used to work for a wealth management company before I transitioned into copywriting. I was a business development manager. I used to do a lot of cold calls at first. Then I met with various clients. I was all in a buttoned up suit. I met them in restaurants and other places, just like you mentioned. And the thing about today's world is that, yes, this still might be a somewhat great strategy, but the problem is that, just like you said, the world has transitioned online, and chances are it's never really going to go back how it was. So you do have to kind of get with the times and learn a new skill set or several new skills actually that will still allow you to make the same impact that you did like early on in your career or a few years ago. Because relationship building is still super important. People still buy from people, not from companies, not from obscure brand names or something. They buy from people, and they need to have know, like, and trust. The cool thing about this is that you can still simulate this, and you can still have it online. I mean, a lot of people do have it, but the bad part of this is that it's harder, because a lot of the tools and techniques and rules that a lot of people used to use before this transition to the online, they're no longer that valid. And it's, for most people, what I've seen after working with dozens and dozens of clients, is that it's super hard to put your communication style and your personal persuasive style into a written word or into a video or something. Somehow, you know, most people, they turn on they push this button, this marketing button inside their minds, and it's like, oh, so now I have to create a marketing campaign, and then they say something or write something which sounds totally off. And I mean, it's normal, because people feel like they have to behave and talk and communicate differently, but most of them don't realize that it's still just like talking to people one-on-one. It's kind of like Friday, you know, afternoon or early, you get out with some friends in the bar and you talk to them like normal. And if you hear that they have a problem, you recognize that they have a burning desire or an unfilled need or something, then you just, you know, say what you have, how that can help, and just speak like a normal person instead of trying to sound all these marketees.
You know, one of the things I found in some of the most effective pieces that I've seen that some of our producers are using that really attract customers into what we would call their sales funnel, their opportunity to move them down a path or a journey towards becoming a buyer, is exactly what you said. They're speaking to the client and just as if they've gotten inside their head and have been listening to the conversation they're having with themselves about their money fears, their money concerns, and they talk about those in their copy. Now, one of the things I have seen, Chava, and I want to ask you to comment on this, many producers, when they want to go out and create their own marketing, they send one email message. And then if they don't get a response, they say, well, this marketing didn't work. What's the value of creating a sequence of messages so that you're touching that same customer 5, 6, 8, 10 times and having an opportunity to continue to carry that conversation on? How's that more valuable than just the one-off?
Oh, that's a great question. I love it. I'm sure that most people who are in sales, they know the touch points that you need to have between like 7 to 8, even 9 touch points with people before they buy. And the same thing is true with online. And sometimes you need even more touch points. So to the best of my knowledge, email marketing is the thing that basically simulates relationship building the most nowadays. Because yes, like social media somewhat does this, but people, when they're on social media, they are in a different mode. But while they're scrolling through their email inbox, if you're doing the right thing, like if you really send emails that are valuable, that are there to build relationships and are not spammy or just like, hey, 30% off, you know, like most e-commerce brands just do, they're lazy, and that turns people off. But if you share stories, and a lot of people like imagine like, why would I share stories with my audience? I mean, shouldn't I just try to sell them something? Well, there's this concept called story selling. So you basically use stories to connect with them emotionally so that they feel they can trust you, so that they feel that you understand their pains, fears, and hopes and dreams. And then you kind of show up at their doorstep consistently. And then guess what? Like they're going to come to you whenever they are ready to buy something. And this is something important that has shifted in the whole online marketing community over the last 1 or 1.5 years, is that people have way more, let's just say, purchasing power. But I don't mean purchasing power that they have more money. I mean purchasing power that they have the power to make tons of extra decisions before buying something. They have all the review sites. They, whenever there's something, they start Googling. And then even though you were there first, they might buy from someone else because they just started Googling. But if you build this relationship, and if you don't just send one email and get them, give them a great idea, but you keep following up, you keep showing up in a friendly way, in an open way, who isn't there to just ask, but someone who gives, then it's going to be normal for them to come to you whenever they're ready.
You know, one of the things that I teach here at Vision Advisors to our financial professionals, and I wish more of them at this point would embrace this philosophy, and that's how you position yourself as an authority figure and as an expert so that you stand out in the crowd, and that you don't look like a commodity, just like every other insurance agent or every other investment professional in the marketplace. How does good copy and good conversations through landing pages, through videos, through the written word, how does that help you stand out as the authority figure or the expert?
It's a great question. My answer is that if you just do the bare minimum, then you're already set, because so many companies, especially the bigger the companies, the more B2B they are, usually the worse their copy is, because they somehow, or for some reason, feel like they always have to talk about themselves and their values, and like, we are this company, this is our mission, we believe this, we do this. The fact is, nobody cares about that, really, right? So if you can connect with and talk to your ideal customer avatar, or to your ideal clients, that puts you way ahead of everybody else. And if you just share, let's say, how you work, if this is called unique mechanism, by the way, and it's really useful in markets where there are tons of promises. Like, so many companies are making promises. After some time, they're making even bigger promises and bigger promises. It becomes an arms race. And then the best way to counter this is that you don't really focus on your promises anymore, but instead you present your unique way, like why you're different, or you create a unique selling proposition. But the thing is, it's harder to create a unique selling proposition because then you need a unique benefit. If you create a unique mechanism, that's easier, because you just communicate what you do. Like a famous example of this, Schlitz beer. I don't know whether your audience might have heard about this. There was this really old school direct mail guy called Claude Hopkins. He was one of the best copywriters of all time.
One of the best.
He invented scientific advertising, and even though his stuff is 100 years old, tons of the gurus who teach nowadays always go back to his stuff. But anyway, there was the Schlitz beer company who he started working with, and the sales for this company were pretty low. They were struggling, and then he actually came in. After a few weeks, he identified one specific process that they do that guarantees that the water is pure for the beer. And then he said, we have to communicate this in our communication, in our copy. And then the manager of the plant said that, but everybody's doing that. Like, every single beer has to go through the same process. And then Claude Hopkins said, yes, but nobody's telling people about this.
That's right.
It's a great example of how you might think that you're doing something that everybody else is doing, but chances are, and it's like, I give it a 95% chance that nobody's communicating these things.
Yeah. So if they're not talking about it and you are, now you stand out as
Yes.
unique and different.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep. So Csaba, let's take that conversation a little bit farther. In addition to trying to stand out as an authority figure and an expert, one of the other things that we teach our financial advisors to give thought to is narrowing their niche. And I just did a training on that earlier this week for a group of producers, because many in the financial services community, they believe what they do, whether they're selling life insurance or annuities or stocks or bonds or mutual funds, that what they do appeals to everybody. And by the time they try to give a message that appeals to everybody, it literally appeals to nobody because it's too watered down. Where's the value in taking the copy and taking the marketing and really bringing that down and getting more specific in who you want to work with? And how's that an advantage?
Yes, this is essential, actually. So just like you said, most people are watering down their messages. And I see this with real estate agents all the time also. It's really crucial to niche down. There's this concept called the 1,000 true fans, which kind of basically says the same thing. You don't need to appeal to everyone. If you have 1,000 true fans, they will refer people to you. They will support you. They will create a happy and very, very lucrative business for you. But the most important reason why I think you have to niche down is because another legendary copywriter, Eugene Schwartz, wrote a famous book called Breakthrough Advertising about 50 years ago, and it's still the gold standard. I mean, it's still the best book on copywriting and just marketing psychology, I would say. And he was the first one who actually said that you cannot create desire, you can only channel it. You can channel it through your product, but the only way you can do this effectively and cost effectively is if you focus on a specific desire. And the thing is, most people have different desires, even if it comes to things like financial instruments or financial services or something like that. So it's still way better if you start with your ideal one client avatar. And then that doesn't mean that you're going to alienate everybody else. It just means that you target one core area of your market. And then very interestingly, you know, this makes your messaging way more effective.
You know, you mentioned some incredible names that you talked about that are some of the pioneers. You know, I think of the ones that you mentioned so far, and I think of David Ogilvy, Drayton Bird, and some other amazing copywriters that have been around. But as we think about narrowing the niche, I think of one client that I worked with. He was trying to figure out how to narrow his niche. And he was trying to go after medical professionals that worked in the alternative medical area, more holistic planning. And so his marketing wasn't working. And as we talked about what he was doing, he ultimately narrowed it down to chiropractors who also do holistic medicine in their practice. And that became his target market. But what became interesting, Csaba, were dentists that did that. And other financial or other medical professionals that did the same thing began to reach out and say, I know you market and you advertise to chiropractors that do holistic medicine. I'm not a chiropractor, but I do holistic medicine. Can you also work with me?
Exactly.
So we took that same philosophy to a financial professional and said, I only work with people between a certain age that are getting ready to retire and want to make sure that X, Y, and Z happen. And that was his story. And then other people younger than that started reaching out and said, I'm not at that age yet, but can you work with me so I get a head start on everybody that's ahead of me? And again, by going narrower, he was able to attract a broader market. But more importantly, and I want to ask you about this, why is good copywriting important, not only to attract the right person, but to not attract the people you don't want to work with?
Well, a couple of reasons. First of all, it's actually better for most businesses to repel people who are not great fits, because it's expensive to acquire customers. If you use Facebook ads or you want to use some sort of advertising like paid advertising, it's much cheaper and the algorithms like you more if you are narrower in this regard, because then they don't have to try to show your ad to various different kinds of people that they know that you're trying to go after dentists. This is the first one. The second one, your so-called click-through rates on your ads are going to be way higher because, again, you will come across as someone who actually understands their problem. If you try to like give them a generic message, hey, you know, achieve financial independence, retire early, yada, 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 that's too vague. That doesn't mean anything. But if you identify a common problem that, let's say, chiropractors have, and you can target them specifically for your ads, suddenly they feel like you are talking to them. And I'm sure that everybody's been in a situation where they saw an ad or some sort of sales message or some sort of blog post even or article or something, let's say a self-help article. And they just felt like, oh yes, this applies to me. Well, that was because it was you know, a much narrower message. And sometimes that's not intentional. Sometimes, you know, people just stumble on something that happens to be, you know, that happens to really apply to them at that specific moment. But you can also channel this. And it's just like if you have a specific medical problem, you're not going to your general practitioner if you need surgery, like a specific type of surgery. You're going to a specific type of surgeon. You're trusting them way more. And it's the same thing with specializing and narrowing.
Yeah. Well, here in the United States, 10,000 people a day are turning 65. And the vast majority of financial professionals are marketing to that broad audience of 10,000. But if we do what you've just said and we narrow that down and we say, I want to target dentists or chiropractors or small business owners or construction workers, and you narrow that niche down, now you've got an opportunity to stand out as something unique and different because you're working with a specific segment that now you can target your marketing more effectively.
Absolutely.
Now, Now, what's the value of if we do an email? I know many of our advisors are saying, well, I'm hearing this thing about a landing page, and I don't really understand what a landing page is and where that can be value. Can you take just a minute and talk about how you would link a landing page to an email sequence and how that could create an opportunity to drive someone to request an appointment?
Absolutely. So basically, in essence, a landing page is just like a simple, they also used to call them microsites. So it's just like a simple website with a single page. Nothing there is distracting. There are no other links because your single goal with the landing page is for them to do something. And in case of a landing page, also called opt-in page or squeeze page, depending on its length, your mission is to get people to subscribe to your email list, or just provide their email address, or request a quote, or something like that. But what most people realize is that it's usually better if you also give them something. Like, you don't make the main call to action request a quote, because that doesn't really give them too much value. Sometimes it does, but not always. But if you create something called lead magnet, also called a freebie, you give them something and this is very important, it solves one simple burning problem that they have. So let's say they have a problem. They have their current situation and they want to get to a future ideal situation. And there are several steps they need to take to get there. You can only solve one step out of 100, or out of 1 or 10 steps or something. And your lead magnet is about solving that specific, very, very minor, but important little burning problem. And in exchange for this lead magnet, people give you their email address. And what most businesses or most entrepreneurs do at this point is that they have the email address. They put this email address automatically, of course, into customer relationship management software, or like an email software. And they don't really do anything with it. Or after a few weeks, they send them a few emails. They try to directly get them to book an appointment or a free call or something. But this isn't really the way to go, especially nowadays, because once you get the email address, that's just the permission. You got permission to talk to them, but it's just like with dating. You wouldn't go there and propose a marriage proposal right away, right? You would just try to speak to them a little bit first, invite them to a coffee, and invite them to another date, have great conversations with them. It's the same thing. It's the same general way how we've made connections and deals. These can be any types of deals since the dawn of mankind.
Yeah, so they drive somebody to a landing page.
Yes.
They give them an offer. Maybe it's a white paper, maybe it's a checklist,
Yeah.
maybe it's a short video training on one of the steps that you mentioned that they're
Yes.
trying to accomplish. Then they go into their follow-up system.
Yes.
And that follow-up system, again, is where a lot of financial professionals miss it, because they don't strike while the iron is hot. And if somebody says, hey, I'm interested, I'd love to go on another date, you don't call them for a month. You think they're going to believe you're really interested in them? Probably not. So I think there's huge value in that. Now, Csaba, go ahead. You were going to say something. Yeah.
I just wanted to say there are specific email sequences, automated email sequences for this, called welcome sequences. So once people subscribe, you obviously deliver on your promise. You give them the valuable gift. But then what the data shows is that if you share them your story, if you, again, just briefly mention how you work, if you start something called belief shifting, you basically just introduce, let's say, a few case studies of people you work with, what was their problem, why they thought that your solution wouldn't work for them and how you actually help them. And if your new email subscriber reads this and sees this multiple times, again, the touch points, going back to those, it's going to slowly but surely, but sometimes very, very rapidly, make them think like, oh, okay, this is different and I want to learn more. And they're going to raise their hands. And once they raise their hands, that's the cue that you can start, selling them a little bit.
Sure. Now, Chava, one of the things you did that just absolutely amazed me is you got a series out on YouTube where you sat down and you looked at some of the 100 best pieces of copywriting that have ever been done, and you did a analysis of each of those. What was your inspiration for that, and what was your major takeaway, and just why did you do that?
Yeah, I mean, that was crazy. Well, I wanted to get to the bottom of this whole stuff because I have a background in psychology and I also have an MBA degree, but they don't really teach you these things in school. And as I was already working as a freelance copywriter for a few years, and a lot of copywriters started mentioning hand copying sales letters, old school sales letters, because apparently, these things kind of encode the wisdom, the timeless wisdom of the greats into your mind. And I wanted to try that. And I also wanted to, I was thinking, creating content nowadays is so important. So what type of content can I create that's evergreen, that's not going to go bad after a few years or not going to become obsolete? And I was thinking, if I go back 100 years and start analyzing ads from Claude Hopkins himself, who we mentioned, like 100-year-old ads, I mean, let's say 2 or 3 more years pass, then they're going to be 103-year-old ads. They're still relevant. And I started with that. I basically, for 100 days, I broke down one ad per day and then created a video. I did it every single day except Sundays because I'm also human and I have to, rest a little bit. And it just felt right to rest a little bit, right? On Sundays, especially. But I'd never missed a day for 100 days. And I filled those missing Sundays in retroactively. So once I finished, because I was working from Monday to Saturday, and then I filled those Sundays in. But the motivation basically was to just really get to the bottom of this and to really identify the core essential fundamentals of advertising, of copywriting, of this thing called direct response marketing, which is all about putting out message and then measuring and then just refining based on that. And it was a life-changing experience because I started seeing patterns, and I started, I've been through so many copywriting courses. I've been in tons of coaching programs. I've read tons of books on the topic. And that's like top-down information, right? But when I started dissecting these letters and I started reverse engineering them, and some of these letters were 50 pages long, and I read a 50-page letter and I marked it up, and then I did the video and I uploaded the video all in the same day while getting married, buying a new flat, and doing tons of other stuff. But I felt super motivated because I felt like I was discovering the secret world that almost nobody else teaches. And I just shared my discoveries with people. And I think that's the thing that kept me going.
I appreciate somebody that is a student of history. Not too long ago, I gave everybody in my office on my sales team a copy of Scientific Advertising. And I challenged them to read that book. And then we came together for kind of a mini mastermind. And it was funny. Some of the guys and gals that came in had been doing what we do for 20 or 30 years. And they walked in, and as they're reading Hopkins material, more than 100 years old, they're going, oh my goodness, we still do this very same thing today.
Absolutely.
And it's that and Breakthrough Advertising are 2 books that, if you want to get your head around marketing, advertising, and messaging, are phenomenal. I'm privileged to get to spend a little bit of time with Dan Kennedy, who's one of my personal mentors. Wow. Again, another direct response marketer that's just amazing. But as we wrap this up, Chava, I want to ask a question of you in terms of make or break when it comes to copywriting. If there's one thing you could leave our audience with today, that as they're thinking about the messaging that they're sending to their clients and to prospective clients, what would be the one value add that you would encourage them to really think about in their messaging so that it has a greater impact?
One thing I would say, write like you talk. Because again, most people, they enter into this writing mode when they start writing something and it sounds off. And sometimes it's even better if you just turn on a voice recorder and you kind of record your pitch or you record your message and transcribe it and just make it so that it flows better. But this is super important because even if you're writing to PhDs or your audience is nuclear physicists, let's say, they still have busy lives and they don't have time to decipher complex messages. Everybody wants simple, everybody wants easy to understand and not confusing. And you know, some writers or some marketers, especially brand marketers, they try to come up with something funny or something clever, but clever is the enemy of conversions. Like, you want to go simple. And there's a great tool called the Hemingway app. It's a free tool on the internet. You can just post your copy into it, and it analyzes the reading grade, the reading level of this. And the lower this is, interestingly enough, the better those messages will work and will convert, because it doesn't mean that you kind of look at people like they're not smart enough to understand your message. It's you're making a favor for them by taking on by not giving them extra work to work hard deciphering your message. And that's where you lose them in an email or a video or something. And it's way harder to do this online, because if you're talking with someone, you see their reaction, you see their micro reactions. Plus, it's impolite of them to just kind of like stand up and walk away from a dinner. Like, they won't do that. But online, they can do it. And the attention span online is just a few seconds, and they're just actively looking for something to basically, for a reason to hit the X button and just do something else. Watch cat videos. Cat videos is your biggest enemy online, because they're just so persuasive. And if you're a dog person, then puppy videos.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I did a series during COVID. I have a 2-year-old, almost 3-year-old German Shepherd. And one of the things I did to build a following and just to entertain people during COVID was, as I would take my dog hiking, he would hijack my Facebook page and he would begin to tell a story about the stupidity of humans. And so we would go hike a trail, and one trail we hiked was called Mason Jar. And so he goes on this rant on my Facebook page about the stupidity of humans naming a trail that has no bearing to the name. He said, we hiked this trail for 5.5 miles. We never saw Mr. Mason. We never saw Mrs. Mason. We never found a single jar. We never found a single lid. And I still have no understanding why we hiked a Mason jar trail that had nothing to do with Mason jars. And just those little comical things that you would think don't get attention, garnered attention and drew tons of people into my audience that wanted to say, who is this guy that's having fun with his dog? And it's those unique, simple things that you talked about that get people's attention. And I think one of the most powerful things you said really is in keeping it simple. Yeah. Because you and I know in working with sales psychology, a confused mind says no.
Yes.
And when you keep it simple and you give them a very precise call to action, now there's only one thing to do, and that's take action.
Yes. There's another famous copywriter called Joe Sugarman, who came up with something like the slippery slope or the slippery slide. You kind of, your prospect basically gets to the top of the slide and they start sliding down, and you just make it frictionless. And then they inevitably going to get to the end.
Yep.
Where you want them to go.
Absolutely. Now, the folks that are in our audience today may want to connect with you and may want to learn more about you and what you do. Now, I know you had an offer you wanted to share, and I'm going to put that link below the video as they watch this today. So they're going to be able to see that. But would you mind telling everybody what you're going to make available to them today?
Sure. So I have the 100 sales letter breakdown videos on YouTube for free. Like, anybody can watch them, and probably we're going to have a link to that as well. But I realized that it's a lot of content for a lot of people, and it might be too advanced. So I also created a really handy cheat sheet that basically reveals the top insights from this whole challenge, what I've learned. And it also has something I call the ultimate persuasive message formula. So this is basically, as far as I know, the best formula that you can use to come up with any single message that works every single time. And that can be like a longer form letter, that can be a shorter sales page, it can be a Facebook ad, a sales email, a YouTube ad, you name it. So if you go to gameofconversions.com/copywriting secrets, and again, link below the podcast episode, you land on a little landing page, and you're going to also see what a great landing page looks like and how you can emulate a great landing page as well. And if you subscribe to that, then my freebie to you, actually, you're going to get tons of great stuff, not just this one.
Yes, you are.
But this whole cheat sheet, basically, along with the guided emails that you're going to get, is going to drip out the most important lessons. And by the time you're finished with this, I absolutely promise you that it's almost like getting a master's degree in copywriting and persuasive messaging. And I get tons and tons of messages from people who subscribe to my link, and I'm the type of person who engages with them actively. So if you send me a message, I'm the person who replies and tries to help you as much as I can. So yeah, I definitely encourage you to check it out. gameofconversions.com/copywriting-secrets.
Excellent. Well, Chaba, thank you so much for taking some time to be with us today. Your insights have just been extremely helpful, I know, to the individuals in our audience that are trying to figure out how to be more effective in their copywriting and in the messages they send to their customers and their prospective customers. Any last thing you want to add before we sign off today? Any lasting word of encouragement or insight that you may want to share?
Yes, one more thing is that anybody can be a great copywriter, because it's not about learning, having an English degree or English major or something. It's not about being a writer or having a formal education on this. If you can talk, if you have empathy, and if you truly want to help people, then you're a great copywriter. You just have to unpack all the negative conditioning that you've got from school or other places, which have their place. I'm not saying they don't, but they don't teach you to communicate in a simple, straightforward way. They teach you to be complicated and just to sound smart, but people don't buy because of that. So if you want to land more clients and be more successful in your business, the best way I know of to do this is to start talking to people on your list or in your sphere of influence as real people, and just be there for them, have empathy, and they will become customers because of that.
That's great, Chaba. Be the real you, not only in the words you speak, but in the words you write.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Chaba, thank you for being with us today. I'm John Terry with Vision Advisors. We have a vision for your financial success. And if you need additional help with your sales and marketing, you can reach us at visionadvisorsinc.com, or you can give us a call at 1-800-505-8489. Just press 0 when the voice prompt starts, and you'll be connected with one of our business consultants, and we'll be happy to help you figure out better ways to get in front of qualified prospects and grow your practice in the coming year. I'm John Terry, on behalf of all of us here at Vision Advisors. Thanks for joining us, and have a great day.